Okay, we're right at 6:30. We're hoping everybody can get home in a timely fashion tonight. Welcome everybody to the July 2025 El Dorado Hills Area Planning Advisory Committee meeting. Thank you for coming out and for being virtual on Zoom. I'm Chair John Davey. Vice Chair Tim White is here with me. Let's see, Vice Chair John Raslier is not available tonight, and I don't know if Vice Chair Brooke Washburn's available tonight. But we do have Supervisor Turnbull virtual and our secretary, Bill Jamaica. He couldn't be here tonight, although I did have emails with him today. So thank you for coming out. Summer meetings are tough because people got stuff to do. So we appreciate you taking time to come out and hear this. Our agenda is pretty focused tonight, so we're hoping we can get through everything and answer questions quickly and let you get back on your way. So with that, let me throw this stuff back up on the screen so we all know what we're talking about. And did it not know? There it goes. Okay. So calling the meeting to order, I just went down our list of officers, who's here and who's not. The first item we approach is the adoption of our meeting agenda. I will turn. Is there any issues with this tonight?
There is no issues.
We're not taking action, so we don't need a quorum for that. So with no changes to the meeting agenda, we're going to move forward. First opportunity we have tonight is for public comment, and we're asking people to try to keep it to 3 minutes when you have these comments. And this is an opportunity to talk about issues that are not on our agenda tonight. If you have something that you want to address that's related to one of the agenda items, we just ask you to hold those questions or comments until we get to that item. So looking around the room first, are there any public comments that are not related to our agenda tonight that anybody would like to offer? Boy, everyone wants to go home. This is easy. Then I'll go to our Zoom participants and ask, are there any comments for matters not on our agenda? Go ahead and raise your hand on Zoom. Okay, seeing none. The next opportunity we have is we'd like to remind everybody, if you want to become a voting member of APAC, we just ask you to volunteer to work on a project review or subcommittee. And we always remind everyone that we didn't know how a project review works when we started volunteering. It's just people who are here before us have educated us. And I always say you might have a process that might be better than what we're currently doing. So if you'd like to volunteer, it's a way you can become a voting member. You can vote on our findings and you vote for officers at the end of the year. And with that, it's time for supervisor communications. And we'll go ahead and supervisor from District 1, Greg Ferrero, is here in the room tonight. Greg, if you, I think that microphone's on. And then Supervisor Turnbull is virtual. We'll get to him right after you.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for once again letting me speak. It's been 2 months since the last meeting, but I do appreciate the time you give me. Okay, so I went back the last 2 months, looked at the calendar and see what we did at the county, and something that's pretty exciting and I think it'll be used. Unfortunately, probably all too much is the county implemented a mobile crisis service. It's a 24-hour, 24/7 hotline where you can call and either get in-person help or help over the phone for anybody that's having any type of mental disorder. It could be used for anything immediately. We also, if the person on the other end of the phone deems it to be an emergency, they can roll the psychiatric response team out, which is a partnership between Health and Human Services and the Sheriff's Department. And so that started on April 3rd, and so they can handle problems themselves or provide resources for care going on if people need further care. And I gotta say, it's one, I sit on the Behavioral Health Commission, and I think it's one of the highlights of our county. I think we do a pretty good job, and we have a lot of resources that a lot of counties don't have for dealing with mental health. Like I said, we have a psychiatric response team, which is partnership with the Sheriff's Department and Health and Human Services, and they work with the HOT team, the Homeless Outreach Team. And then we also have a PUF, a psychiatric health facility, which is, where me being a cop for forever, I worked in a bunch of different counties, and if you had to put a 5150 hold on someone because they're a danger to themselves, usually because of attempted suicide, a lot of times you had no place to take them because the county didn't have a facility, and you have to try to take them to the ER. Fortunately, we have a facility like that in El Dorado County, and it's one of the rare, rare things that we can provide that a lot of counties don't. So, yeah, I'm really proud of our, the mental health services that we provide as I'm learning about them. I want to commend the fire department for their fire department, CAL FIRE, the sheriff, CHP, El Dorado County OWOPR for your evacuation drill back in May 18th with the Lake Hills Fire Safe Council. They activated the emergency alert via the rave alert and to a specific group of homes. They evacuated them to the CSD building, and then there's a town hall afterwards. And I think it was pretty successful, and kind of just gets people thinking about how they're going to learn about a fire in their area and the different alerts that are available during on apps on your phone. We opened the El Dorado Trail overcrossing over Missouri Flat on May 31st, and that was a partnership with DOT, El Dorado County Transportation Commission, Parks and Rec, City of Placerville, and the Friends of the El Dorado Trail. And if you haven't seen it, it's a beautiful overcrossing. It's a bike trail crossing over Missouri Flat. Let's see, I'll skip some of this stuff. One of the things the county's doing, and as you're all aware, we had some, dealing with budget issues, is looking back, they haven't done a good job previously of collecting fees for different services. So one of the things the county is doing as a whole, and kind of all different departments, whether it's the airport, senior services, park and rec, is trying to reestablish more appropriate fees. Some of the fees haven't been reassessed in 9 years, and so that's we might get complaints on why we're raising the fees, but we've been negligent in the past on actually keeping up with the times and inflation. One thing that's of interest to El Dorado Hills specifically is the intersection of Green Valley and Locke, and when that is going to be improved. If you're familiar with that, it's kind of a dangerous intersection. Is it downhill, especially if you're coming downhill and making a left-hand turn on the Locke into the Sterlingshire neighborhood. But that improvement, and I'm not sure the specific details, but I think it's going to be a turn lane into Locke, is going to be beginning construction either in late 2025 or most likely early 26. And they're tying that to the CIP for the Vineyards project, which is one of the projects that have been approved off of Malcolm Dixon. Glassy wing sharpshooter. If you're not familiar with it, it's an invasive pest that can devastate wine regions. And we have a problem in Serrano, in more of the tract homes in Serrano, where they've identified the pest, and our Department of Ag is working with the state of California in trying to get voluntary compliance to homeowners to allow the county contractor on to either spray or they inject something into the ground that is absorbed by the roots. But the pest, they love the crepe myrtle trees, which there's a lot of them in Serrano. And but we're getting some pushback. We're getting a lot of people. I think the email I saw that we've successfully treated about 500 homes, and there's about 300 that we haven't received permission to go on. So if you know anybody that's talking about it, have them, call my office, call the Department of Ag. But it's really important that we try to nip this in the bud while it's in a small, few block area before it goes up the hill and affects our wine region. That's about it. We reinstated the funding for the Film Commission. If you remember a few months ago, one of the things we cut regarding our transient occupancy taxes was the funding for the Film Commission, and we did reinstate that, and we're going to that's another thing. We've never collected permit fees for films, and so we're going to have a fee schedule for that because El Dorado County is a pretty desirable place to shoot films, and we need to take advantage of that. And so I thought it was important to have someone coordinate that, as opposed to just having planning the building assign a staff person to that project. So that's being reinstated. We're going to be looking at the tobacco ordinance again that was approved last year, and hopefully scaling that way back. And that is about it. They're gonna, I don't know the time frame, but we got a generous donation from the Serrano Men's Book Club and the Friends of the Libraries to replace the sign at our El Dorado Hills Library, because it wasn't in compliance with the Serrano HOA, architect's guidelines. It's getting pretty old. So the sign has cost about $30,000 to replace, and I think we got about $25,000 in donations from these two groups. So that is all I have. If anybody has any questions.
I'll jump in line first, invoking some privilege. I would note that Vice Chair John Raslier is with us virtually tonight, so thank you, John. And then the other thing I was going to touch on was the turn pocket for lock. I know that we talked about that years and years ago. I believe there's a turn pocket in, and then there's also a refuge lane for when you turn left out heading west.
Down the hill,
Yeah. So those were two things that we talked about. I want to say it was approved right when the pandemic hit.
I haven't seen the plans, and I was actually talking to DOT, and I was quite surprised that it's going to happen this soon.
Yeah. So, but I know it was something that we talked about for a long time about that. That was one of the concerns, because I think that when they redid their traffic impact analysis, that I thought, well, maybe that really isn't their impact, but I think they had agreed as they negotiated.
Yeah,
so
I think John got that started.
Oh, yeah.
I think he had a big part in that. And having lived in the Highland View neighborhood, or Highland View neighborhood for years, I use that intersection all the time. And if you're coming down the hill and getting ready to turn, I mean, you really need to get the turn signal, half a mile back and start slowing, so cars behind you have time to slow down.
Yeah, a lot of issues on Green Valley, regardless of that.
No,
so.
we've had, I think there's been 3 fatal crashes this year.
Yeah,
so
and
far.
I'd say 8 years ago, I saw someone drive eastbound, probably about 300 feet before lock, thinking they were on lock, and drove right down in that gully. It was not pretty. So, but yeah, so improvements are things that I think the community is eager
We have
to
a few
see.
intersections like that.
1 or 2.
Yeah.
So, are there any questions in the room for Supervisor Turnbull?
I'd just like to make a comment. I'm Tom here for the Creekside Village stuff. I'm a traffic engineer.
Okay.
A couple weeks ago.
It's for our, it's for our Zoom.
Make sure it's green. There you go.
Yeah. So a couple weeks ago, I had a potential client that's looking to purchase a couple acre, I think a 6 acre parcel that's a remainder parcel from the LDS church there that we have
Green Valley there.
on Green Valley, and they were looking at a driveway aligned with lock. And I was advising them that they need to make sure they're coordinated with the county, because I knew that it's a section of Green Valley with issues. But I think if the design goes forward the way it's laid out now, that remainder parcel, at best, it would be limited to right in, right out. And not that should jeopardize the improvements going on for Lockway now, but you guys just might want to be aware that there's a potential issue there with the remainder parcel.
Because there is a sign, you're talking about west of the church, and there is a sign, I think.
Yes, west of the
Development
church.
or for sale, or
Yeah.
someone bought it? Okay.
Someone was looking at buying it
Okay.
and putting 6 homes for extended family on it.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be good for DOT to know.
DOT is aware of it.
Oh, are they? Okay.
Yeah,
okay,
I've had
okay.
conversations
Okay,
with Zach
okay,
about it.
all right. And I would hope they.
Yeah,
have
so
it
it's,
handled.
again, not really relevant to what's happening
Yeah.
today. It just,
No, thank
since
you.
we're talking about it, I thought you might want to be aware that there's a remainder parcel there.
Thank you.
Any more questions in the room? Seeing none, we do have someone online with their hand up. Chelsea, you should be able to unmute.
Oh, hi there. I'm really sorry to interrupt. I just have one thing to tell everyone.
Nigger, 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 nigger.
And now they're gone.
With someone.
It's good to make friends. So, well, that was our excitement for the evening. So if there are no more questions for Supervisor Ferrero, then we'll go ahead and we'll check in with Supervisor
Thank you.
Turnbull. Supervisor Turnbull.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you could yell whatever you want apparently. So
All right.
come on
Okay.
in.
John. That's crazy. Anyway, John, I just can't believe some of these phone calls that come in. It's ridiculous. And we've had them at the board meeting too. So anyway, there's been a lot of things going on that I've been doing. Basically went back cap to cap, went back to Washington, D.C., pushing logging in our county. So working on that. And I sent two letters to the President of the United States, basically about individual assistance and policy change. And everything that I asked for and the policy change he did. So he read everything that I did. We're not going to import lumber from Canada anymore and other countries. We've got enough here in our own United States that we could harvest, which is going to be good for our economy and for creating new jobs. So it's a lot of good things that I've been working on. Title 25, you heard we broke ground for the first house up there, which will be Mac and Kathy's, and we're pouring the foundation on the 17th. So I'll be out there helping with the foundation to get it started. So that's one of the first ones. So it's going to be kind of a model, especially for our county. One of the things is working with Alex Padilla. You know, I started the Fix Our Forest Tax bill was started in my office with McClintock, but I didn't get very far. So basically, and then when the new president came in, now it's pushed through the House of Representatives and went through that. Now the Senate is, and I'm writing a support letter, which I just did, with helping support Alex Padilla to get this passed. So it's going to be a great thing for, California. It's going to be a great thing for our community to, stop a lot of these horrific fires that we have. Also, Brian and I are working on the oak tree ordinance. Basically, is trying to exclude the live oak because the live oak is kind of a scrub oak. And the problem is there's a lot of people can't remove these things off their property. They're a bush. And you cut them down, they grow back just as fast. And this will help a lot of the residents, especially when it comes to fire insurance. That's another thing that I'm working on too, because I brought it up with Padilla's office, because we can do a federal thing for insurance and have a standalone insurance only for wildfire only. That'll help to bring the insurance companies back that can insure your house for fire, have fire insurance, and then a standalone wildfire insurance. So then that way, if they actually choose to get it or not choose to get it. And the biggest problem is it'll help a lot of the seniors is what it will, because a lot of them are forced out of their homes because they can't afford the insurance anymore, also making the payments on their homes. So also Carson Crossing, there were some issues I know down there with the large trucks being used by Beer Camp, and all it took was a phone call by me and a few other people, and that stopped. So I just want to let you know on that. They're not using it anymore because the signs are up. And then also, that I brought an item together on the Board of Supervisors to name the road that going up to the fire station there in the honor of John Heidel. And there is going to be a sign called John Heidel Way. It is going to be put up. I talked to Raphael about it. I thought we couldn't do it, but we are going to do it because there's a way around it. They can put the sign underneath it, and it's not going to jeopardize the address and, or the mail that gets routed here to the fire station, Station 85. So, like I say, there's been a lot of things that I've been working on. We're trying to get this reservoir built, making sure that we got the funding for Alder Creek, and making sure that we secure our water rights for the county. And then, like I say, when I was back there, I met with all the different congressmen and talked about Mamafa. He is a great guy. He really is, and he thinks exactly like I do. And so some of the stuff that I talked about to him, he has already put in place. So a lot of things, good things are happening in the county. We had the budget, Brian and I were on the budget ad hoc committee, and, we got to have a balanced budget. It's against the law not to. So we had to cut some things, especially, all this funding out, these money that's going out to all these different agents outside or whatever, the county, not inside. So we had to do that to save, because we saved, I think, 28 to 30 jobs by doing what we did. So there's a lot of things going on. We had to cut a lot of positions in the county. It's kind of really sad because it's one of the things that I didn't want to do is lay people off, but I'm working on what we can do to bring, money and revenue back to the county, and we can bring a mill back that's going to help with our roads, because we used to generate anywhere from 15 to $20 million per year. Plus also I went to rural schools too. So a lot of things going on, a lot of things that I'm pushing. I keep being persistent. So anyway, that's some of the things that are happening that I'm doing right now.
All right, well, thank you. Are there any questions in the room for Supervisor Turnbull? John, do you have a question?
Yes,
Reslier?
I do. In regard to this wildfire insurance, how serious has this been looked at, and do you think this will ever happen?
Yes, I think it will happen because they're taking a look at it right now, John. Because, when I had that roundtable, I had a roundtable meeting with a Whopper, and we had all the, CAL FIRE, the Forest Service, we had all the insurance companies, we had Adam Schiff's representatives are there, and I let them have it. Let me tell you, I think it's sad because I know a lot of seniors that have lost their homes because of the high insurance costs, because they're on fixed income, and they're basically homeless now. One particular person's a real good friend of mine. He's living in his car and he's waiting for the senior housing to be built. That's right up there on Rice Road, I guess is what it is, right there in Diamond Springs. So he's got his application and hopefully he can get in there. And so it's just sad. He lost his wife. He has no family. Couldn't sell his house. He did his upgrades and stuff. Took a loan out to do all his upgrades and stuff. That was required by him, especially when it comes to fire. And he just couldn't pay the loan, especially when you're on fixed income. It's sad. So that's some of the things that we need to address. And that's some of the things that I am addressing right now to try to fix that problem.
Is there anyone we could write to about this separate
Well, the biggest
fire?
biggest thing we could do, we have to write to the federal government. The state is not going to do anything, that. But if we get some leverage from our U.S. senators, I would recommend writing to Schiff and writing to Alex Padilla. That's who I would recommend. Also, our congressmen's too. So anything we can do. All right.
Okay. All right. Thank you, George.
You're welcome.
Thank you, John. Online also, Joel Wiley. You should be able to unmute. There you go, Joel.
I think I did.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Perfectly.
George, you mentioned lumber and bringing back jobs for lumber. What are the chances of getting sawmills to return to El Dorado County?
Well, what I'm working on, if I can get 20 years of product of guaranteed, we will bring a mill back. I've already been promised that. So
Great,
that's what I
thank
was
you.
working on today. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Joel. Are there any questions in the room? Okay. Well, thanks for taking the time, Supervisor Turnbull. I know that you as the chair of the board, you're busy and you're
Yeah, I know, and I've got another bunch of phone calls I got to make right now. So
yeah. So
all
we
right.
won't keep it any longer, but thank you. We appreciate you participating with us.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, John. All right. See you tomorrow, Greg.
Okay. So moving along. The next item on our agenda, we're moving into the project area of our agenda, the Creekside Village Specific Plan. And gosh, I know we've talked with you probably since 2017 about this plan. And George Carpenter's here from WIN, and we'll go through this tonight, but the draft EIR was published on June 20th, and the comment period ends on August 19th. So if you have comments that you want to put in, and you should also remember, this is a draft environmental impact report, so your comments should be related to the environmental aspects of the project, not whether you like parts of it or dislike parts of it. It's primarily about the environmental aspects of it. So you'll have an opportunity for the other comments later as the project moves forward. I'm gonna go ahead and throw this on the screen, and then we'll let you do the driving after that, and you could just cue me when you're ready. Wherever you want to be. Okay. Too far. Ah. All right.
Okay. Make sure I can be heard online. Well, good evening, everyone. My name's George Carpenter. I'm with Wynn Communities, and I am the developer of the Creekside Village project. John, thank you for the introduction. And we have been talking about this project for a very long time. One of my slides here is some of the history, and it does not go all the way back. But the reason we're here tonight, is, like you said, is that the EIR for the Creekside Village project, the Environmental Impact Report, has been released for public comment. The county has released it for a 60-day comment period, and that ends on August 19th. We wanted to come to a meeting of APAC during the comment period so that we could make sure to reach out to the community and let you know that the document is out. It's available on the county website. John also posted it on Facebook, I think is where you can find the link.
It's on the APAC website.
Multiple
it's in a lot of places.
Yeah, so thank you very much for doing that. One thing we wanted to make sure we said was at the request and reassurance of staff that tomorrow the Planning Commission of El Dorado County will be holding an informational meeting up in Placerville at their chambers. It starts at 10 a.m. They have another item before, so we're at time specific at 10 a.m. And the other thing they wanted us to make sure to tell everybody, the public, is that if you have comments on the draft environmental impact report, to make sure to put them in writing. And so that comments people make either at this meeting of APAC or another APAC meeting don't necessarily get recorded. They need to be in writing and submitted to the county. That was really important to them. So I did want to address, we have been to APAC multiple times. We were here back in January to talk about our project and what it was, and we're back here tonight. Tonight we brought our team to make sure if there were any questions that anybody had and wanted to find out more specific details on things that I couldn't necessarily answer. We have Tony Gahn from our office, who's the project manager. We have Tom Keir, who is our traffic engineer. We have Dave Corsario, who is our civil engineer, who's done the work on the site plan, the grading, all the infrastructure, and then Bree Mobius, who's helping us with our CEQA strategy. And so let me see if I had anything else. No, I guess that's, oh yeah, one last thing. We do plan to come back to APAC once we get farther in the process, and we can make sure to work that out once we see what kind of comments we get on the draft EIR, get the final environmental impact report ready to come back. We can come back and talk. And we're always open. We've met with the traffic subcommittee in April of 2024, and then again in April of 2025. We got a copy of our traffic study out to the traffic subcommittee a couple of weeks ahead of the draft EIR release, just to try to give you a little more time to start taking a look at that document. So next slide. This is just kind of, I don't know, I've got 10 or 15 slides here. It'll take me 5 minutes to get through. This is the location of the Creekside Village project. It's at 209 acres at the south end of the business park, and it's located in between the Blackstone and Heritage projects. It is, this is property that was previously in the business park, but was de-annexed in 2018. And you could go to the next slide. You'll see the history of our project. And the project application was originally submitted in 2019, but we were actually working on it. I was here for a Board of Supervisors meeting in this room in 2016 when the board was looking at how to help the business park because it was really struggling to absorb. And one of the early conclusions was there was too much land in the business park. And so eventually the business park owners agreed, de-annexed the property in 2018, and we submitted our application in 2019. And we proceeded with that application. And we met a little bit of pushback, and there was maybe some miscommunication. People were thinking that we were building low-income apartments and building way more than what we'd actually proposed. And so we were approached by a different property owner, or a different developer about building Project Frontier. And so we agreed to sell that property to that developer. But eventually, that developer ran into a lot of opposition and eventually withdrew their application in May of 2023. And so from there, we talked to our neighbors on both the Heritage and Blackstone side and other community folks, and realized that the best approach was to reinitiate our project, our Creekside Village project. And the reasoning was they wanted certainty, the neighbors wanted certainty as to the land use on this property, and to know it wasn't going to be used for R&D uses. The next slide. So the What's going to be going in front of the Planning Commission tomorrow is the draft EIR and an explanation from county staff. And there's one thing that I want to make sure folks understand is that is the nomenclature that we're using. There was the original project that we submitted, which had 918 single-family homes. They were conventional, and we're calling that our original plan. And there's the plan that is called in the environmental impact report, the reduced impact alternative, and we're calling that our preferred plan, just so it's a little easier for people to understand in just kind of conversational discussions what we're talking about. If you could go to, because last fall what happened is we had to change our plan, and if you can go to the next slide, there were three things that happened. One is we found out that the school district has limited capacity. Latrobe Elementary has 2 campuses for their K-5 students, but their campuses are limited in the ability to expand. They can't, they're on well and septic, and due to their site constraints, they can't expand their campus very much. The other thing we talked to them about was maybe de-annexing our property from their district and putting it into like the Buckeye district that could handle more students, but they weren't interested in pursuing that. And so what we agreed to do was limit the conventional single-family housing on our project to 150 single-family conventional homes, with the balance being 613 active adult homes. And the other thing that we ran into similarly at the same time was that we found tribal cultural resources on our property. And we needed to do a set-aside area to make sure that we didn't impact those. And so those required us to do some revisions to our site plan. The other thing we heard about during a lot of our community outreach was concern about traffic impacts on Latrobe Road and essentially the area south of Highway 50. And one of the things about going to active adult is the traffic generation is significantly less. And I think I have a slide, either it's here, yeah, I have a slide here. I know I'll have it tomorrow at the Planning Commission, but if you could go to the next slide. What we did was this ended up being our revised land plan that we are calling now the preferred plan. And this, maybe if you can go to the next slide. This is really what this shows you here is the red on this slide is what has become the active adult part of the project. And then the turquoise area up above is the 150 conventional single family houses. We still have the park that is going to be right at the entrance. One of the other changes we made was to remove what was designated as commercial property right at that corner, because we heard some pushback about concerns about traffic logistics, lighting, noise. And so what we did was we made that a land use category that could be either park or it could be retail commercial down the road. But the retail commercial down the road would require a use permit. So there could be more specific studies done at that time to analyze whatever the intended land uses would be. So it doesn't get rid of it. It just pushes it off to a later time to allow for further discussion. The other thing we did here was we had a couple of sites previously that were higher density land uses, and there was a lot of concern or questions about whether those were going to be apartments, whether they going to be low-income apartments, and they've all along been intended to be higher density housing and kind of consistent with the county's multifamily general plan designation, the 5 to 20, 24 dwelling units to the acre.
24 per acre.
Yeah, so it's a little higher density project. And so what we did is we went ahead and just lotted that out now so that people had certainty as knowing what kind of land uses were going to be there. So if you go to the next slide, this is a slide that I just wanted to give some relative scale to the what happened with the traffic trip generation. Under the general plan, the R&D uses, you could have up to 4.5 million square feet of building. If you did office campus, you could have a similar coverage, and basic traffic generation would tell you that's somewhere in the 50,000 average daily trips. Our original plan for the Creekside Village had 918 homes, around 10,000 trips a day, and with this preferred plan, it's down to about just a little over 4,000. And what that has done is it has minimized some of the impacts on the roads and reduced the impacts that we would create and eliminating some of the impacts, some of the improvements that we were going to be required to make. If you go to the next slide, I'm not going to get too much in the detail of this. We showed this, we went over this with the APAC traffic subcommittee about the various road improvements that would be required. And you can go to the next slide. It's a little more detail there. One of the improvements we're definitely still having to make is a signalization at Latrobe Road and Royal Oaks at the entrance. But what was previously referred to as Latrobe 72, a widening of Latrobe Road north of Investment Boulevard, is not going to be required as part of our project. There are some other signal improvements that will be required, though, and I'm happy to address those, but I can leave some of the detail out there. If you want to go to the next slide, John. And one of the other things that when we talk to residents over at Heritage, that this biological preserve that runs through their community is very important to them. They've got a long-term maintenance obligation with respect to this area. And so we have met with the APAC Traffic Subcommittee and representatives of the Heritage Homeowners Association. And we walked the site with them and have been committed to maintaining the connectivity of that drainage through our property that feeds water into their property, and using best practices to maintain the environmental quality. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see this is the drainage that we're talking about. We had some drone footage flown out there just to give you a sense that what you're looking at is you're looking east here across the Creekside Village property, and in the distance is Latrobe Road, and then even past that is Blackstone. And I think there's one more slide showing from the other side, looking back, and that's looking back the other way, looking west. So, and that along the south side is going to be the regional trail, I guess we're calling it, or the connectivity trail between Blackstone and Heritage on the other side, one of the project amenities. And finally, if you go to the next slide, you'll see we want to make sure that county staff is asking us to track and provide them with our public outreach program. And so we thought we'd just share that with you to show you all the meetings that we've had and all the different groups that we're trying to bring together and bring a project forward that the county can support. So that, I think, is the end of my presentation. And I've got a note here to say that make sure that if you will have any comments on the environmental impact report, please make them in writing.
So, okay. Oh, well, these were in here. So did you want to touch them at all, or?
Only if people had questions about
Okay.
specific traffic improvements.
I-
When we talked to the traffic subcommittee from APAC, we didn't have these, and so we were able to still kind of look at them and
Yeah.
talk through them, but it was a closer setting in case we needed to show this for the bigger group. We wanted to have these, but
And of course, we'll share this on our website after the meeting. It'll probably be posted tomorrow, so that all the slide and the materials will be there as well. But I know that when we were talking in earlier this year, was it January?
yeah, yes.
I believe, that was one of the concerns. I want to say it was probably that one.
Yes,
There was a concern, is that Avanti?
yes.
Okay. Avanti at, on the east in Blackstone, and then there were concerns by the residents there that they'll be, left out from that roadway onto, they didn't want the impact there. So it's a right in, right out only for Avanti. Is that correct?
That's what we're showing right now,
Okay.
yes. And no southbound left in because that's an exit only.
Yeah, exactly. So that was a concern that they had. And I know that we touched on it when you were here at the beginning of the year. And so there was, and then that's investment. Okay, investment at Latrobe. Okay. And so a lot of future turn lanes, all those. So I guess we'll open it up to the room first. Do you have any questions first?
Yeah, just one. APAC received a letter from a gentleman who lives down in Blackstone. And he received the notice for all this other stuff. He's been here since 2016. He's not opposed to Creekside, but he would like Latrobe Road cleaned up and islands landscaped like they are on El Dorado Hills Boulevard. He thinks, it's trashy once you go past CVS. So he asked, are there any plans to clean up Latrobe Road islands and roadside weeds and trash going all the way to the new proposed Creekside Village? Now, this may not be your issue, or your requirement to do anything, but you raised a question, so I'd like to ask it to you.
Thank you. We don't have any plans to do any specific road work or cleanup programs, but we're certainly open to talking to DOT about it and passing on that comment to them.
Okay. And I know in the past, not for your project, but that's been a concern for many years for residents down there.
Yeah.
And, gosh, when I moved here in 95, none of the medians were done here on Eldorado Hills Boulevard, even though they've been here since 1962. And so that was the roadway LAD that they ended up, property owners voted to fund it. And that's how we had a lot of the landscaping and the medians north of Serrano and towards Green Valley Road. So the struggle there is that there's parts of that area that are not in the CSD's district boundaries. So they'd have to go to LAFCO and add those in if they wanted to do it. It's a big deal to get that lined up with the correct special district to help maintain it. Voters would have to vote to fund it. That's hard to do. It's a heavy lift. So, but I guess if we keep talking about it, maybe some solutions will become available. So that's enough of me. In the room, are there any questions? Hey, so do you have a microphone back there that, as long as it's green, just talk?
All right. So could you give us an idea of the range of square footage of the two types of homes and the square footage of the lots as well?
We do have that information. The home sizes are going to range depending on. The idea was to have a range of housing types, and so we've got what we call smaller lots that are higher density. And Tony, yeah, so 1,100 square foot lots. Yeah. Yes. Houses. Yeah. And then how big were the lots going to be? Lots. Yeah. Okay, so 3,500 square foot lots. So that's a lot smaller than what you typically see in El Dorado Hills. But there are some housing types that are like that already in both Blackstone and in Heritage. And so one of the exhibits we brought here before is it's a land lot comparison that you can see where they match what's in the existing areas. But that's gonna be about 175 of the homes. And then the balance is going to be the more traditional single family houses where they're on lots that are 45 feet wide by 105 feet. All of them are going to be single story in the active adult part of the community, because that's how you build an active adult community. There will be 2 stories in the conventional single family houses, but then we range all the way up to, is it 65 by 105? 65 by 105. So lots that are up over 7,000 square feet.
The size of the homes?
We don't know yet for sure. I mean, the smallest, I think like we said, was like 1,100 square feet, but then I think, you could probably go up to 3,000 square feet on some of the bigger lots.
Any other questions?
You mentioned the schools, and I missed that part about, was Latrobe not interested in annexing, or Buckeye wasn't interested in annexing? Latrobe was not interested in losing the territory. Yes, so we talked about that, and we have a letter from the Latrobe School District supporting this approach, and I understand they're going to be at the Planning Commission tomorrow, making their position known as well.
Okay. Any other questions in the room? Okay. Let's see. Let me just grab this real quick. I can get over to you. I'm sorry, Chris, it's taking me a while to get over here. Krista, you should be allowed to unmute now.
Yeah, this is her husband. We're on
Hi.
the computer, so you keep talking about not doing any updates to Latrobe Road. I don't see how we can add more traffic to a road that is already the oldest and worst road in the entire El Dorado County area. If you go down the road, there is chunks of asphalt coming out, and there are holes that are starting to become unsafe for things like motorcyclists and bicyclists, where they're going to hit it and cause them, an opportunity to crash or bend wheels and things. And I don't see how we can continue to kick the can down on that road anymore. It seems like it's just an ongoing no matter what the project is in our area, that road always gets put off. And I think we're past that point, you know.
I could take a shot at addressing just a couple of points. One is I want to make sure I didn't say that we weren't going to do any improvements to Latrobe Road. We're not required to do the widening of the segment called Latrobe 72, which is Investment Boulevard North. We aren't required to do that. There are some intersection improvements that we do need to do to make sure that we help reduce the delay that's caused from traffic from our project. The other thing that we're doing is we're paying about $13.2 million in impact fees to the road fund, to the county road fund, to do improvements. And there are some planned improvements that for capacity on Latrobe Road south of 50. And our funding could go towards that if the county decides that's what they want to, where they want to spend it.
Yeah, we have a quarterly meeting, APAC with building planning and DOT. And, that was one of the things when Frontier was in front of us, is that was proposed to put one of the Latrobe Road projects back into the CIP because it had been removed. And our concern at the time was like, well, you're adding it just because this projects are coming, or is it, our concern is like, if we made an opposition to it, it's like, if it's genuinely needed, then of course we would probably support you, adding that in. And at the time, there's so much opposition to it that DOT did pull that back out. And I know that we've had a ongoing conversation about it. It's like, there are legitimate needs on Latrobe Road in many areas, and some of these projects are going to be going back into the CIP. The CIP is a 20-year document. Now, it doesn't mean that something can't happen in 5 years, but for planning purposes, there's a 20-year horizon on that. So parts of Latrobe Road are still, pending, I guess. Mr. Resler, you should be able to unmute.
I am unmuted, I believe.
There you go.
Okay, I have a question. What in your plan encompasses people who are going to use bikes and pedestrian pathways that would connect them to Heritage and, of course, possibly to Blackstone?
Thank you for that question. That our land plan does have a non-vehicular circulation component to it. And theoretically, you could be on the Class 1 trail that's on Latrobe Road at Royal Oaks now, and you'll be able to go across Latrobe at the signalized intersection. Then you could travel west towards the existing heritage that's under construction heritage. You'll have the ability to then take a non-vehicular path up through the business park to the south end of Robert J. Matthews, or you would be able to continue on off-road all the way west over to the potential future park site, the 30-acre park site south of Heritage, or onto the trail that goes around the outside of the Heritage project. That connects all the way up to Carson Crossing.
The question I want to ask, are any of these paths a Class 1 bike trail or even a Class 2, or are they just a shared pathway?
Everything that I described is Class 1. There are also some Class 2 sections that offer access. But the majority is Class 1 off-road.
And would any of these Class 1 bike trails run into a gated community where you couldn't get in?
No, we've got it all circulation around the gated parts of the community.
Okay. And I just want to add that if anybody ever rode a bike on Latrobe Road, you'll know that it's close to suicide to do anything on that road. It hasn't been swept. It's got holes in it, heavy traffic. It's really a disgusting road for someone who would want to try to ride a bike or to walk. And don't forget, you have a huge school next to you, and you will be having students. Hopefully, some of them would want to go home by bike or walk rather than have their parents come and cause a major road congestion in that area. That's my comment. Thank you.
I think one of the things that we as residents in Colorado Hills, who will obviously any additional traffic that comes out of the project is going to affect us here. I know you talked about 13 million, more than $13 million. That goes into the county. The Board of Supervisors, they decide how that is. That $13 million is not dedicated to say, okay, most of the effect of the traffic is going to be on Latrobe Road. That 13 million is dedicated only to Latrobe Road. So we need to let Ray, we need to let George know, because they're going to be our advocates at the Board of Supervisors to make sure that those funds actually are spent where the effects are felt. So George, I hope you'll lead on that when the time comes, but that's I think in George's district. So, we need you guys to work together with the community, make sure that a good portion of those funds end up here and are not siphoned off, to Cool or South Lake Tahoe or wherever. They need to be spent where the effect is felt.
So, and those are, that contribution to the road fund is through the was it back to TIF, right? So the zone.
Yeah, it would go into the Zone C of the TIF program.
Okay.
Which is supposed to only be spent in the Zone C area, but
Zone C is.
It's bigger than what Zone 8 used to be.
Yeah. So, so we have another George online waiting here, and that would be, I'm assuming it's George Steed. George, you should be able to unmute.
Hi there. Yeah, sorry I'm not there in person. Nice to see this project coming to fruition, or at least to this step. I think we've come a long way, and I like the looks of it, but I do want to draw one point that continues to come up whenever we talk about the bicycle trail down around Heritage El Dorado Hills development. That is not a Class 1 bicycle trail. It should have been a Class 1 bicycle trail, but between the incompetence of our El Dorado Hills Community Services District and our planning department, that is a multi-use trail, and it's so stated in the conditions of approval. Unfortunately, not only is it a multi-use trail, but it narrows down and has a horrid kink in it at the south end. So I just want people that are putting up bicycle maps and doing advertisements of bicycle connectivity to be aware that that is not a Class 1 bicycle trail. Other than that, thanks, George. Thanks for the WIN team that's been working. We appreciated the outreach in our community. And I think we've come a long way from where we were looking at potential Amazon project going on that property. It may not be perfect, but it definitely is an attractive or potentially an attractive community and a much lower impact on the environment. Thanks.
All right, thank you, George. All right, are there any other comments or questions? Let's see, online, I don't see any in the room. All right. Well, and George just described it. You guys have been very engaged with us, and we looked at your timeline for your outreach, and we know that it's much more than that. I know that we sat down, I want to say it was 2017, 2018 again too, and then you were at APAC not long after that, several times, I think, within the first year. So, it's not often we get this sort of engagement. So we appreciate the amount of time that you've allocated for us, and hopefully what you've heard has helped you frame the project so that it's a benefit for the community and benefit for you. So with that, I guess you're free to go.
Thank you very much. I've been coming before APAC for 20 years,
Yeah.
and I always appreciate the comments and the feedback. They're not always what I want to hear, but I do appreciate hearing them, and so thank you.
All right. Well, thank you again. And have a good show tomorrow. I would be virtual for that. All right. So moving ahead, we have an opportunity tonight to talk about a project we started recently. It's a curated library, and Melinda's here. Do you want to? You can sit down or whatever you want to do, or you want to do it.
Standing is good.
And Nancy's here, so they're working together as a team, trying to arm wrestle this project to help residents become educated volunteers. So if you like, I'll just jump ahead and I'll go there, and you can drive.
Okay, so I'm Linda. Nancy's been my partner in this. So the idea, as stated, was to kind of come up with something with guidelines and information, so it makes it easier for people when we say, hey, why don't you do some review on a project? It could be, well, what does that mean, right? Or as we're starting to look through them, just some little hints and tips and things along the way. So I tend not to be very visual, but Nancy had the great idea of at least trying to put some kind of visual together. So I kind of just did a general stack. Ultimately, our general plan, county ordinances, those are at the top. It would be great to do some review of that ahead of time. I'll be working on a secondary because you don't necessarily have to do that. If you want to review the documents as you're going through the project plans and things like that, then you'll be able to do the same thing. So underneath that, you'll start to see some of the rows on there, like a pre-application. Lots of times people don't realize what the pre-application is, and it's just to be able to socialize the information out, right? It's not formalized. And then you get, this is high level. So those of you that have the projects understand projects are a lot bigger than this. Trying to simplify, okay? Then the application comes in, that's done review by planning only, and then it moves into the notice of preparation for the EIR. Once that's produced, then we come up with the review of the EIR and any recirculated ones or whatever happens. That goes back, it gets modified and adjusted, and then comes back as the final EIR that goes out for project approval. So I put on the side some of the opportunities to engage. For us, the most important one is APAC, right? It's all citizen organization. And so that's on there. J6, I saw that referenced on the PowerPoint from the slides there. So that's an opportunity for the developers to come up, do a presentation in front of the board and the planning commission, things like that. Different workshops, I've seen different workshops socialized here and there. Typically, those are not things that are action item type events, but there's still opportunities for people to get together, take a look at things, provide feedback. There are other community committees that potentially could be, I know Cameron Park has a design review committee, potentially that would be part of it. Then of course it moves to the commissions like the Ag Commission, Planning Commission, Zoning Commission, things like that. And then the Board of Supervisors. So text on side, basically feedback happens in a loop through all of this. There's constant feedback that's going on. So one of the things was, and I know it was mentioned earlier, right? It's not just when you make verbal comments, try to make sure they're written in. And the reason for that, one, it's in writing, you know, it gets in. But then two, you can maintain it. Because some of these can go for 7, 8, 10 years before they get to a point where they get to approval, right? So then you remember what you've submitted and you can go through and check the documents and see and make sure that they're resolved per what you said or bring them up again. So, okay.
So I have the blow ups of these if you want to.
Right. So some of this, one, I'm trying to put it together such that then I can work with John and we can put it on the website. But right now, this part is just a Word document, so he made it fit. But basically, I've got a review of a number of acronyms that are generally used. So for quick reference, because there's a lot of acronyms, Nancy reminded me actually that there's a ton at the end of our general plan that's listed too. So I may include some source of information that is available from the county that may have some other ones if we can single source the items. But at least it's kind of some helpful ones that consistently happen. Then I'll start going through some of the development process outline. I'm still looking for the county to kind of produce some more detailed information so I can produce the high level. But I'm going to call out a number of things like what's a negative declaration, what's a condition of approval, things like that. Then I have a bunch of links. So I have direct links for the county general plan, CEQA planning, the county ordinance code, development review agency list, things like that. Projects in your area, that one Nancy and I had been talking about. So the county came out with that kind of recently. I think it's a pretty good visual view of a map. And then when you click on the link, it takes you to the most current information for the county. So kind of just a quick reference area. And then of course I included eTrack-It for anyone brave enough to go in and try to do that. Right.
I read that for fun.
I know.
Sorry.
Yeah. I understand. It's an adventure every time I go in there. I did list out the sections of CEQA because a lot of people may not understand what that is. And when we go into the NOP, it usually we're presented with, we're including these sections. What you don't necessarily see are what other sections are potentially available. So this would be a complete list of the CEQA items. So if you go into a review and you're like, hey, I don't see anything about recreation, which anyways, you would, but you know that's part of it, okay? So just a quick reference list, that's all. And then I put some maybe references outside of the county if I think it's going to be helpful. We'll figure that one out because I want to make sure it's manageable as well. And then starting to put some little hints and tips, things like make sure you're checking current zoning and land use according to the county versus what it's actually saying in the project documentation, little things like that. So we are looking for ideas. Does this make sense for people? Are there other things that would be helpful? I don't want to make it volumes of information. I want to make it more quick reference stuff and things that are beneficial.
Yeah, to help people get started.
Yeah.
And typically we try to do that, but when you're elbow deep in it for something that's imminent, it's kind of hard to do the work and also educate along the way. And like we always say, somebody else may have a better process, so we're looking for that as well. And so Nancy and Linda have been working on this. We appreciate your efforts on this because this is a lot of work. And so if there's any input that anybody would like to provide, some suggestions, you could pass it on to our email account, or the officers all have our email addresses on our agenda, but our email account is info@edhapac.org. Or, on our social media pages, you could put in a question there and we'll do our best to pass it along to the people doing the work. So, but this is something that we've talked about before and just, we've never had time to do it. So, if there's any suggestions in the room or online, we're all ears.
I think it's terrific, and I think it's be very helpful going forward. I'm just waiting, so when we can use artificial intelligence and use this information, get the county, the environmental impact report for and then just plug in artificial intelligence to do all the review and analysis. That might be a very scary.
Careful,
Scary.
careful.
I have a whole lot of thoughts on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So even this example right here, when we're talking about CEQA, is we've done it several times, and I forget as I'm going through. It's like, wait, what are the other ones? I'm trying to count them. So, yeah. So
I've done that too. So that's one of the reasons I put that list in.
yeah. So there's always one. Recreation, we see it all the time, but it's easy to forget. So the same with the utilities. It's hard to do. And I know some people right now, they saw that obviously there's been it's been called a landmark change in the CEQA law. It doesn't seem to be as big an impact for us because it's primarily about infill projects in higher density areas, more urban environments, but it clears the path for the goal obviously is to get more housing built. And the objection has always been that it's, trying to get through CEQA, it slows you down. But
within El Dorado County, there are some areas with urban boundary lines.
yes. So, and how that's quantified and how it's applied as the project comes forward, we won't know until it comes to us or there's a lawsuit. So thank you both for doing this work. And again, if there's any suggestions on this, we're open to hearing them.
Yeah.
and send them on in. We would appreciate it. So.
So one last thing then, I had talked with John about it, because one of the things as people are come up and do reviews, it's like, well, where do I start and how do I know that I'm doing the right things? So I did get agreement that I will set up a couple meetings specific to Creekside review for anybody that's doing the reviews. So as you go through it, if you have questions that you want to run by with people within APAC and just run by before you submit them or get clarification, then you'll be able to do that. So I'll make sure I set those up and give them to John. And then if you, anybody that's doing it, you can join and, you know, we can just chat for a while. And remember, there's no stupid questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, both of you, for taking this on. So moving along in our agenda, we just have a couple update items and then we'll let everybody go home. The Lime Rock Valley specific plan, there's a partial recirculated draft environmental impact report. I think there's been 3 versions of it, and there were some elements missing when they released the notice of availability or the notice of preparation, the notice of availability. But anyway, so this has been revised a couple times, and it was originally supposed to, comment period was supposed to end in June, and now it's been to July 14th. So we submitted some comments on Marble Valley, had the same sort of partial recirculated draft environmental impact report. A lot of the same issues because their adjoining properties are in this, a little more detail for Lime Rock, which is why they had to extend a little bit more, so they had more of the studies included. But we remind everybody on this one, the project comment period for the draft EIR recirculated ends July 14th. It's very narrow focus when you're putting your comments in. They have to be limited to what's in the recirculated, not the previous version, which we already supplied comments on. Biological resources, cultural resources, hazardous materials, recreation resource categories. So there's no changes to the project itself. The remainder of the draft, the initial draft EIR is unchanged, and it's not part of the public review in this component. So with that, it's very narrow. The wonderful crotch bumblebee, and I'm not doing Latin, but it was added as a candidate species for state listing for endangered in 2022, and it wasn't included in the draft EIR because it hadn't been added by that time. And then there's some additional impact areas under biological resources that were added to clarify specifically for the crotch bumblebee. That's fun to say. And then there's some information about recreation as it relates to, there's 2 community services districts. Marble Valley is primarily all within the El Dorado Hills Community Services District. I believe the desire for the project for Lime Rock Valley was to be in the El Dorado Hills Community Services District as well. However, the Cameron Park CSD has raised some issues about the potential impacts for their existing facilities from having, 800 new homes for Lime Rock. So another facilities demand assessment was prepared as part of this recirculated. So if you have some comments, you can put in on that. Again, it's narrow. I think what we submitted was only maybe 5 or 6 pages for Marble Valley. It'll be very similar, I imagine. Unless you want to add something and help us out, we're always willing to entertain more help on these. So again, that's the 14th, sorry, the 14th in a week, basically, and by 5 p.m. And then there's some specifics on, there was a lawsuit about preparing for wildfire and escape routes and planning. That's part of it too. And we made comments on the other project. We'll do probably similar comments on this. So Lime Rock Valley, if you have any comments, and you don't have to read all this, it's the EVA routes. It's in the document if you want to take a look at it and provide comments. Again, if they're written, then they have to be responded to in the final EIR. And if you make a comment that's not related specifically to the environmental impacts, they will say, hey, thank you for your comments. They'll be passed along to decision makers, but it's not environmental in nature, so they won't respond with specificity in the final. So there you go. So, and then to wrap up tonight, just some area project updates. We just talked about Village of Marble Valley specific plan. in Lime Rock Valley. So the comment period for Marble Valley for the recirculated was the 23rd. It ended. This one's ending on the 24th for Lime Rock. Town and Country Village, El Dorado. We had multiple presentations. Another very good engaged applicant with us at APAC, I want to say from 2018 forward. Their final EIR is expected soon. It could conceivably be next month, but the timing and how they're going to get that published hasn't publicly been decided. They were trying to be at our meeting tonight, but the project-wise, they weren't ready with new information because it's still sort of unsettled. But they're committed to come back, and it's one item below this here. Costco is going to be at our meeting next month. And so for fairness sake, because it's a big dang deal project and a lot of people have a lot of concerns, we really don't want to put another project with it. We want them to stand alone and let people have the full attention, have the applicant have the full attention. If Town and Country needs to make a presentation to us, we'll see if we can get some more availability in this room. I know that there might be next Wednesday they have room, but I don't think they're ready to make a presentation yet. So if we have to do a second presentation in August, we'll do our best to accommodate, because they've been very engaged with us and we want to maintain that. So, and then we just heard about Creekside Village tonight. The comment period ends on August 19th. And again, if you don't put it in writing and submit it, then there won't be any response. So you'll look for that in the final when it's released. And Costco, we talked about the presentations at our August 13th meeting. Generations at Green Valley, who we've had several times over the years, their draft EIR was issued last year. They made a presentation to us here, but we have had no updates. So, and I have not heard from the applicant for a while. So again, these things get kind of stuck in the planning process where maybe they have to do an additional study and they're engaged in that, and the planning department has to prepare those reports to be published, and so that we can all take a look at it. So when we hear more about Generations, we will obviously ask them to come back and talk to us. And then the last project that we're still waiting on is the Gateway El Dorado specific plan, which is technically the project site around the Tractor Supply store. They have entitlements that are existing for R&D use, and they've built 2 new warehouses, and they're talking about building another 4. But then they've come back and they decided to make it part of a specific plan where there'll be elements of that R&D use, but also an opportunity for multifamily housing, maybe some workforce housing. And they did come and talk to us. They did finally submit an application on Friday, May 9th, and the documents are in Trackit. I think I added them. Oh, geez, I'm gonna have to look. No promise. They'll be there tomorrow. How's that? On the APAC website as well. So I know a lot of people, there's a list here, people are very engaged and very concerned about some of these projects. So we just asked if you want to help out, we will take the help. So if there's nothing else, I'll let you know what, remind people, if you can't be here for our meeting, you can submit your comments in advance. We ask for them to be in by 5 p.m. on the Monday before our Wednesday meeting, so that there are questions, we can give them to project applicants and say, hey, could you have an answer prepared, so that you don't have to wait for a month for our next meeting. And for these, we ask the questions be related to our agenda items. Our next meeting is August 13th, 6:30 p.m. back here in this room, and also virtual via Zoom and streamed on YouTube. So
Standing room only.
yeah, well, Costco. So yes, yeah, and we want to get answers. So have respectful questions ready, and hopefully we get answers. I don't think there's anything we haven't heard yet. So, are there any go backs? All right. Anything else in the room? Thank you, everyone, for coming out and spending an evening with us in July, and we are adjourned.